Hello again, Canada. Welcome to the One Soccer Hangout MLS's back edition. We've got a busy show today talking about all three Canadian MLS clubs who have not done particularly well so far. And to help me do that today, we have One Soccer's Gareth Wheeler and Oliver Platt, as well as Sportsnet's Dan Riccio, also known as Blackbeard, Redbeard, Brownbeard, and Ollie. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Great to see everyone today. Riccio, been a while. Is Vancouver okay after last night? We're going to dive into it, but briefly, the city's still good. They haven't burned down BC Place or anything.
No, I think people are okay. They've kind of come accustomed to the Whitecaps blowing late leads over the last couple of years. So it's been a lot of the same kinds of reactions from Whitecaps fans.
Gareth, every MLS team has now played. Now that Vancouver's got one in the books, what have been your impressions on the tournament so far?
I think it's been very entertaining for the most part. I think that the variance in terms of game times has really thrown off some teams. There's no rhythm, a lot of upsets. If you're trying to pick winners, your guess is as good as mine because it's kind of one of those situations. Expect the unexpected, and I think it's really opened the door for some other clubs that you might have expected not coming into this tournament to have real opportunities with teams picking up points across the board. I think it matters less about where you finish in your group because your draw is completely being thrown into the mixer anyway. So if you wanted parity, then this is the place for it.
Ollie, are those 9 a.m. games growing on you yet? Because I don't think I've seen a good one yet.
Well, I'll admit I didn't watch Atlanta this morning because I needed just a bit of recovery time after
Didn't
what
miss
happened
much.
last night before I came into the show.
Full red cards, and that was
Um,
about it.
yeah, no, it's like I think for all the madness that went on in last night's game, and it was an incredible game. I think probably one of the biggest things that you have to take out of it is that it was the team that was first to arrive in Orlando and San Jose and had already played a game against the team that hadn't played a game yet and was last to play and has had massive disruption to their preparation, right? And I think the last 20 minutes kind of told a story there in terms of where the two teams are at fitness wise and preparation wise.
All right, let's dive into that game now. That's going to be a big chunk of our show before we talk about the 401 Derby coming up later tonight. Before the game, though, very nice moment. Obviously, we're accustomed now to seeing the Black Lives Matter protests and signs of solidarity before kickoff, but we also saw a very nice gesture from the Whitecaps holding up a Brian Meredith jersey in support of the backup goalkeeper whose mom tragically passed away suddenly on Tuesday. So obviously, our thoughts are with Brian and his entire family. After that, though, it was a comedy of errors. I don't want to call it the match of the tournament. It might be the most bizarre match of the tournament. But, Dan, I remember after the game, and we had a group chat going, talking about it throughout, just trying to make any amount of sense that we possibly could from what we saw. But you and I, Reach, after the game, tweeted the box score, and there's some doozies on this box score. Let me just go through a couple, if you don't mind. Corner kicks, 22 for the Whitecaps. Possession, 70%. Zero saves needed by San Jose, but an own goal almost cost them the entire match. And Vancouver, 3 goals on 2 shots. So, Reach, where do you want to begin? You are the Vancouver-based media guy on the panel right now. What was your biggest takeaway, if you can even pick one, from last night?
Well, I mean, this is Disney World, right? So we may as well get weird and wacky with the way things are going to play out. Although I don't know if you could have even scripted last night's game as the way that it went down. I mean, it was bonkers. Sometimes I get upset when I see such sloppy play because I want it to be cleaner. But at the same time, mistakes do make for entertainment, and there was a lot of those in last night's match. It's tough to be hard on the Whitecaps just given their circumstances with such a depleted squad and everything like that. This is something we go back to last year with the way that their inability to hold on to leads and their youth really shows. They just have no confidence in holding a lead. They shell up and they turtle in front of their net and can't gain any possession for any length of time when they need to. So it really was weird. It was wacky. I think my favorite part of the match is when Shea Salinas scored the goal at the end, and Max Crepeau is just like, no, it's a handball. It's a handball. It's a handball for sure. It's just obviously it was not. Sorry, Max. Like you've been pretty awesome otherwise, but that was not the finest moment right there.
Also,
It wasn't the fake pyro.
Too.
It wasn't the fake pyro by
the fake
the kit man with San Jose. Look, and I fully understand that, Dan, like a little bit of apathy when it comes to this tournament for Vancouver Whitecaps fans. And you got to feel for Mark DeSantos, because by judging by his team last season, what he has at his disposal this season, I don't think we're going to be able to get a fair gauge of what this manager is or is not at this level. And that's what's unfortunate, because you really like the guy. He's a hard worker. He's intelligent. He's well thought of. But this squad, quite frankly, isn't good enough. When you look at this group, the spine of the team is the weakest part of it. Any team that's weak at the center back position and through central midfield, you're going to struggle in any game. And that's what happened last night. Like, you're up 3-1. I'm sorry, even with the depleted side. Look, San Jose's already played a game here in Orlando. There might be some fatigue with that team. You got to be able to hunker in, understanding your limitations as a group, and find a way to come out with it. I'm disappointed that they didn't bring on a Derek Cornelius, because the two center halves absolutely had a mare last night. I'm not sure what the Canadian international has done to see himself pushed that far out of the equation, that when you're up 3-1 in a game, that he's not even an option to bring in, maybe to put three center halves in. I mean, they were playing five up front, the San Jose Earthquakes were. So I think that there is reason to be disappointed. Not that the fact that you lost the game, it was how you lost the game. You were gifted. It was wrapped up in a bow, tied up for you. And then you tried to one-up the Earthquakes by making calamitous errors at the back. And those were schoolboy errors. I don't care if the players are 22, 21, 32, or 12. You simply cannot make those errors at the back.
Yasser Kamari really had a nightmare last night, and the Wando goal, he's just like watching as the ball pops into the air. It's like, what are you doing, man? Stop watching the ball, take a man, do something. And then, of course, on the tying goal as well, he's not ready to defend that corner kick, and he gets easily beaten. Like, you're 6'4", man. You shouldn't be losing too many headers in the box there. Like, get your head in the game. And that's really where the youth shows on this team. And
sorry, Dan, the match-winning goal was the worst. Like, a striker made a run across. It took two center backs with him. You have to win the ball. You have to hold up the player in that moment. And he was turned around it was a straight run towards goal by Shea Salinas, of all players. This wasn't like Miguel Almiron, like, running at you. I was baffled by where he was going on that.
I was going to say, like, what are you going to do when Lionel Messi is coming at you like that? Oh, wait, it's actually former Whitecap Shea Salinas. No, it's a disaster. And, I thought when the season pause hit, they beat LA Galaxy. And I thought that was a game where finally I started to see some of the principles that Mark DeSantos was talking about show on the field. It had been a year coming, because they really had a tough go about it last year. And you started to see a little bit coming through. And then the pause button gets hit and everything's thrown for a loop again. I think it's really difficult right now for the Whitecaps, just in the sense they haven't had any consistency. DeSantos showed up. He turned over the entire roster, tried to put a team together in 3 months after he showed up in November of 2018. And it's just not gone well. They haven't had any chemistry. The front office has been a disaster. There's been scandal after scandal. They finally seem to get some things settled, and they punt Mark Panis off during the midst of the pandemic. It's just really been one disaster after another. For me, it's always come down to, when it's not settled at the top of your organization, it's going to filter all the way down through. And that's really what it feels like right now for the Whitecaps. As much as last night was a disaster, this is things that have been building up for a long, long time.
I want to get Ollie in here now. Yeah.
Well, just to add to that, like, one of the things that concerns me is that Mark DeSantis can't seem to get his team to do what he wants them to do. Like, it's one thing if they were kind of doing what he's asked. He's constantly saying, press, get higher up the fields, be more aggressive. He said it in his pitch side interview during the game. But they just can't seem to do it. It would be one thing if they were doing it and doing it badly and getting beaten, playing the way that he's trying to get them to play. But they just can't seem to get that mentality of getting themselves up the field and being more aggressive. And it's this constant bunker, low on possession, high on opposition shots. I thought they defended okay for the first 45 minutes to an hour last night, and then it all crumbled down. But that's the concerning thing for me is that he just cannot seem to persuade his players to do what he's asking them to do.
But if you don't have the players to do it, Like I look
Yeah,
at this
they may
team,
not.
I think they need a right back, they need a center back. They at least need one, probably two central midfield players. They probably need someone that can attack down the right. You can make the argument that their starting goalkeeper maybe isn't the starting quality in MLS as well.
No, I
Those are
wouldn't
a
say
lot of
that.
holes in the team.
I think
Like listen, like
well,
Max Kripo is a sweetheart. He's a Canadian international. I know a lot of people have their fans, but Danny's a wonderful shot stopper, but he does not command his area at all. And he's not the biggest goalkeeper either. And that can be problematic in a league where there's big, strong players. I'm not saying he's not quality, but what I'm saying is that in this league, you need presence, and the better goalkeepers are typically the one with size. Other than being a shot stopper, I'm not sure what he does exceptionally well.
Well, Max has been the savior of this team in the Marc Dos Santos era because they'd be just getting blitzed in
For a
every
last place team, Dan, a savior for a last place team.
I know, and they'd just be getting blitzed every match if it wasn't for him. And I know he gave up 4 last night, but he made a couple of really outstanding saves too. You're right on the commanding his area part. I think that's a big area of weakness that he needs to continue to work on, and he will. He's just been a starting keeper in MLS for just a little over a year now, so he's a part of this young core, and he's probably one of the better parts of it. They need help in midfield. Wang and Baum has not worked out. He was this Korean international that was supposed to come in and really help their midfield, keep possession, be a guy that can play box to box and really help the attack. He doesn't make any decisions in attack. Like he's never making a forward pass that's really breaking lines of the opposition. I think there's a lot of work to be done there. And Russell Tybert, love the guy. He's been the face of the franchise because they've just had so much other turnover, and Rusty has just been that guy that's always been here. But he's not an MLS caliber starter. He's a squad player. He's a squad player and a valuable squad player, a good guy to have in your team, but he is not a locked-in MLS starter. This comes down to a lot of things. They've just overlooked that time and time again. They don't put the investment into the squad to get the players that they need, and they're kind of trying to finding Band-Aids on a budget. And when you do that, you're taking a lot of darts. You're throwing a lot of darts at the wall and hoping something sticks. And nothing's really stuck for Marc Dos Santos over the last couple of years.
I think they're trying to bring in young players as well, right? And that makes sense because they are a team that's been in a rebuilding mode ever since Carl Robinson left. But you need some leadership, as Wheels has said, down the spine of that team. I think Hwang is a player who every so often you see something and you think, okay, I like that, that like on the first goal last night. But then he disappears for half an hour and you don't notice him, and he can't carry that midfield on his own. And same thing with the centre backs, 22, 23 years old. I think Vasilinovic is even younger than that. We've seen in this league time and time again, especially if you want to win a championship, but even if you want to have any kind of success, experience at the back is so important. Having that vocal leader, the Drew Moore, Chad Marshall type player is crucial. And, I don't know if these players are being put in a position to succeed because the spine of the team is so young.
Yeah. I two things, on some of the players they were missing. Lucas Cavallini, they need that worker up front. Yordi Reyna is a very solid player and a quality player, but to have him in a false nine, the biggest problem they had last night is anytime they would get possession, all they would do is just try to break and get on the counter. They're just and they needed to keep possession for times. They needed somebody to hold up the ball, slow the game down a little bit so that they could catch their breath when they were defending once in a while. And that's where they really missed Lucas Cavallini. And I love the signing of Tosaint Ricketts. I know he's not going to, be a superstar, but he really brought a veteran presence to this team last year that they really needed. And we saw that early even in this season. So those two players, missing them, I think from a leadership standpoint and being able to settle yourself on the field when the game gets into those moments that are murky and you're really up against it, they really missed those guys last night. And I don't think that can be overlooked.
Well, it's a good point too. Vasilinovic, 21 years old, and then the other center back, Kamari, is 22. So, I mean, the youth is just exuding from the center back position. That's not necessarily a good thing. Want to quickly get your thoughts, Ollie, on Max Kripo before we move on here. Obviously, Milan Borjan, he's not done yet, but at some point, John Herdman's going to have to ask the question, who's going to take over the crease when Borjan's done? Based on what we've seen so far, keeping in mind that Kripo is still a very young man, 26 years old, Does he have the stuff to be a potential starter for the Canadian men's national team?
But potentially, I think I'm somewhere in between Dan and Wheels on this. I do think that he has some concerns on crosses and commanding his area, and I think you saw that on at least a couple of goals last night, where I thought he could have been more aggressive and potentially claimed the ball. I do agree with Dan that the way he played last year with his back to the wall was very impressive at times, and I think he's earned the number 1 jersey for Vancouver for sure. I think some of the attempts I see to anoint him as Canada's number 1 ahead of Milan Borjan, I think is totally premature, and that I don't think he's outplayed Milan Borjan yet.
Gareth, I know you have strong opinions on this. I'll let you get a word in here.
I'm not trying to bash him. I think he's a fine goalkeeper, but he's not one without flaws. And just like Ollie, when I hear the calls that he should be the number 1 goalkeeper for Canada over Milan Borjan, Borjan's been playing in the Champions League in Europe. Crépeau's been backstopping the worst team in Major League Soccer. I mean, there's no comparison between the two for me. And I think that there's some work that Crépeau had to do. And listen, last night, it didn't matter if David De Gea was goalkeeper for the Vancouver Whitecaps. They were conceding. There was very little help there whatsoever. So the problems go beyond Max Crépeau, but just look, I like to analyze and look at the Canadian players to see what they're doing. And I continue to come back when I look at Crépeau, like 7 out of 10s. Like I'm not an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10. And that's
Right.
what you need to be the number 1 for your country for me.
Also, Boyan's 32. Like people talk about him like he's like 40. He's still got several good years ahead of him especially for a goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think it's still a problem spot for Canada because Borjan has made some big time mistakes in big matches for Canada, and you are kind of looking for that next one. Max Crépeau has been that guy. Who's the next guy up? Like who else are we talking about that's going to be the future of the Canadian net?
One young boy that's playing in Italy. His name just escapes me right now. There is some,
Brezza,
yes, yeah. There is some good young players coming through, and what I keep on hearing is that this next generation of Canadian talent that's coming through is better than the one that preceded it. So it's positive. So there's no guarantee that Crépeau will be the next man up. I know he has his fans across the national team program, but we'll see how that plays out.
Okay, gentlemen, most important question on this game from last night. More impressive last night from Ali Adnan, his first goal opened the scoring, or the dive when he got plunked in the head with the softest thrown ball and the biggest sell job I've seen in quite some time. Dan, more impressive, the goal or the dive?
I mean, his acting career is set up, right? Like he is certainly, this is not, he's not a stranger to these types of antics, and I think he does it to get under team skin. Like his opponents, he can really rile them up. He did that a lot last year, and you saw it was getting to San Jose a little bit last night with some of his antics. But you can't deny some of the class that he brings to that left back position. It's curious as to why that would be the spot for a budget team that you're investing in, but he does bring that level of finish class to the Whitecaps that they don't really have in other spots. They just couldn't defend to make that 1-0 goal really help them out all that much.
I think Ali Adnan's acting was justified by the fact that the officiating team thought that was worthy of being sent to VAR. He was pretty close there to sending San Jose down to 10 men, which could have seen this game have a different outcome. So I can't really criticize him for it, as ridiculous as it was.
I like the goal. I think him and Milinkovic actually have something decent going down that left side. Both are big, strong, physical players that are tough to play against. So I think the left side of the field will be the least of Mark DeSantos' problems. And really good goal last night. And I think that shows you the type of player that the Whitecaps thought they were going to see on a regular basis when they made his signing permanent.
If memory serves, Vancouver's next game Sunday against the Sounders, Cascadia Clash, 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific. An important game, obviously, for Vancouver if they want a chance to finish in the top 2 in the group. So the last question I will ask you, gentlemen, start with Wheels this time. Who's going to win this group? Does anyone want to win this group?
Well, Chicago Fire did pretty decent in their first game against the Sounders. I was actually pleasantly surprised, but I'd be having nightmares already if I was Jake Nowinski or whoever's going to play with Jordan Morris running at you. And he didn't start the last game against the Fire for the Sounders. So this could be another tough one. Owusu's not going to play in this tournament again for the Whitecaps. This group's there for the taking. Despite how they gifted away those goals last night, there's something about this San Jose Earthquakes team. Almeida's a very good coach. Chivas de Guadalajara had all kinds of success in Liga MX and the CONCACAF Champions League. He has athletic players that want to play his style of football. I think that the Earthquakes are the best team in this group, despite some of the, let's put it bluntly, like the absolute comical play that we saw last night. They're not that bad of a team.
No, I agree. I think they are the best team in the group. And I have a bit of a theory that I think they are fitter than everyone else. And because they're fitter, they're having more of the ball than they'd actually like to. I look back at some of the stats last season, and when they have 60% possession or more, they lost like 8 games out of 13 or something. I don't think they're a team that actually likes to have as much of the ball as they have, but they're outrunning teams, they're outpressing them, they're getting it back quickly, and they're finding themselves with 60, 70% possession. And that's resulted in as many mistakes as good chances, I think. But I really think if they can figure that out and get a bit better in possession, a bit more clinical in the final thirds, physically, I think they look like probably maybe the best team at this tournament.
Well, their investment in the squad isn't that much more than what Vancouver pays for their squad, and they get a whole lot more out of it, right? And I think that comes down to Almeida and how well he's coached this team. You could see it in spurts last year. That they, for me, are the best, but I think Chicago, because they have the most runway here and they have the 3 points of the bank, they've got a chance to win the group, maybe as an upset.
No votes for the MLS Cup champs. I'm surprised by that.
Well, they've already
look at it.
They've already squandered a couple of results, so it's going to be a tough sledding for them.
Yeah, and João Pedro's not playing in this tournament. That's a significant loss, and they have some questions at center back right now, and their attack just looks a little bit disjointed up top. Look, they played a lot of football. I know they've had this break, but teams have dips in form, and I think that the informed teams right now, the Earthquakes, look good. And look, some of the new players brought in by Chicago, they look decent as well. I know it's on first glance 3 games that they played, but they look a much different team this year under new management as well. So we'll see. I just don't think there's any lock for the Sounders. I don't think there's any lock for any team in this tournament. Let's put it that way.
Very good point. All right, that's going to tie a bow on the West Coast. Let's talk about the other 2 Canadian teams playing tonight. 401 Derby, Canadian Classique, whatever you want to call it. TFC and Montreal meeting for the first time since the Impact won the Canadian Championship at BMO Field. And a disaster for TFC. Maybe disaster is a strong word, but obviously another bad finish for Greg Vanney's side. Ollie, what can we expect differently from Greg Vanney's men tonight if they want to secure 3 points?
They just need a better last 30 minutes. They couldn't have been more in control, really, for the first half, the first hour or so. Went totally to plan. The big question marks in the team, what's Pablo Piatti going to be like? Thought he was excellent. Ayo Akinola steps in for Altidore and gets 2 goals. They looked fine. They looked totally in control. So it's about seeing out that last period of the game if once again they can get themselves in control of the game. And the big question for me is, are these fitness issues, the cramping up of players like Gonzalez and Mavinga, is that going to be a persistent issue, or can they, now they've got their legs underneath them, keep their best 11 on the field for most of this tournament?
Yeah, it was, for me, I think you still take a large amount of positives for TFC in that match. And really, I think you chalk it up a little bit to Orlando playing in the sun and not having a real match for the last 4 months to how their form dipped towards the end of that match against DC. I really like everything that TFC has going for it. And, Thierry Henry is still trying to get things going with this Montreal squad. To be a new manager in this type of scenario with the pause after so much time and to try and get all of your principles in, I think that's very difficult on Thierry Henry. And the consistency, Greg Vanney knowing his squad, knowing how to get the most out of them, is really going to be a big factor in this match, especially after Thierry kind of called out his team a little bit and saying that they just didn't have the intensity in their first match.
By the way, have we settled on Canadian Classique? Like, I've been covering this rivalry since day number 1. I've never called it Canadian Classique. No. Like, can we just call it the 401
MLSsoccer.com's
derby?
putting it out there.
I
I'm
know they
401
are.
derby all the way. 401 derby all the way.
And I know people in Montreal take exception, but really to get to Toronto, if you're driving, you're taking the 401. There's just no avoiding it. Okay, so I know people that live in downtown Toronto that never even go up to the 401, so I don't want them to be offended either. Anyways, I think that the Montreal Impact have far more questions to answer tonight than Toronto FC. TFC had a bad 10 minutes, really, and they're playing in the heat, understanding that they have half the time off that the Impact would heading into their second game. So I understood why they kind of took their foot off the gas. They're up a man. It's hot. It's a morning game. They're conserving for their next game, and it completely backfired nonetheless by a couple shocking errors by experienced players in the Toronto FC team for that matter. But it's the Montreal Impact. I mean, they looked a mess. Like, there's no chance Samuel Piette can start it right back again, right? Like there's no chance. And one of him or Wanyama will have to make way tonight. Cause for me, I've already seen enough. I don't think that the two of them can play in the same midfield. Even Rob Fanny was saying that he thought that the two, when they were playing in the midfield together, were getting in each other's way. So what kind of shape does Henry set his team out to play? Who fills what role in the team? And that could mean some big decisions, keeping some big players with big reputations out of the starting 11 tonight. How will that go over? I think that Thierry Henry has a much more difficult job on his hands than Greg Vanney. Not even close.
Yeah, I still think they could play together, but maybe not with a back three behind them. If you've got 5 players in there who are kind of sitting deep and playing pretty passively, that's probably not going to work. Question is if they can go to a back four. We said on the last show, I just don't know if they have a sense back options to play a back four confidently right now, and so the back three has been a bit of a band-aid for that. But yeah, there's a lot of questions to answer for Montreal, and the big one for me is Thierry Henry in this to really see it out, because I think it's a 2-3 year job, and it's going to take a lot of patience.
But he's got experienced players there, Ollie, like Taider, Boyan, Wanyama. These are all players in their late 20s. If you're bringing players like this in to be the core of your team, you're playing to win now, aren't you? Like, well, yeah, that's why Henry is brought to Montreal. Other than an 18-year-old Lewis Banks, who's I think been very good for the Montreal Impact. This is an experienced group.
Well, that's the other thing too is just in MLS you're not really rebuilding too often, right? You're not taking on a 3-year job, and at least not a lot of teams are going to have that kind of patience. I think what the thing is with Thierry, he's just hoping right now that some of those guys, Boyan, Okonkwo, even Max Arudi, they just find a moment where they can bag a goal and then hope for the best, hope and defend and pray that they can hold on for 90 minutes.
I will say this, the context of tonight's game, Montreal, it couldn't be any better because they're going up against a rival where the emotions will be there. I don't care if it's being played in front of 50 people or 15,000. There's going to be emotion in this game. And they've had a week off. That's enough time to recuperate, to refresh, but also to review and try to implement new ideas. Toronto FC is going to be doing this on the fly. Just 3 games. I mean, they're coming out of their recovery and they're 2 days before their next match. I mean, that's exceptionally difficult. So TFC is going to have to rely upon depth, and Montreal is going to have to rely upon new ideas.
Hey, gentlemen, almost out of time. So quickly, I'll get a prediction for tonight from everyone, starting with you, Dan.
I'll go Toronto 2-1.
Wheels?
I'm gonna go TFC 2-0. As long as Mavinga and Gonzalez can stay on the field, TFC just has such an incredible spine. And just really quickly, Adam, the one thing I'm looking out for tonight is if Michael Bradley plays or not. I mean, he's coming off a long-standing injury. He was man of the match, best player on the field for me. It's going to be interesting to see if he plays tonight. He'll want to play tonight, but will the club proceed with a little bit of caution? It might show what direction they're going to take for the rest of this tournament.
I was going to say my money will always be on Michael Bradley playing. I'll go 3-1 Toronto.
All right, looks like a sweep for TFC according to our pundits today. Ollie, Kurt Larson, we know him, we love him, tweeted at you earlier wondering if we were going to get an update on the CPL. So before we say goodbye, what, if anything, can you tell us on the RTP?
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Well, there's nothing's really changed from what I said on Monday. I really do believe we're down to the final details and very, very close to getting, as I said, some good news. The good news may take a day or two more than I'd hoped to come. But there will be a season, and I think there will be a season, and Canadian Premier League games happening probably a bit sooner than people might think.
Very good. That's as close to good news as we can get until an official announcement is made. And
How
hopefully
soon, Ollie? How
coming
soon?
Yeah, Ollie, come
I'm
on,
not-
Ollie, give us some more.
I'm not getting into dates anymore. You just get burned too many times.
That's
The
a fair
announcement's
call.
coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
All right, gents, that was a lot of fun. Thank you all for being here. Wheels, we're going to see you tomorrow as you guys recap the show. Who's on the show with you tomorrow?
It's a great question.
Oh, come on. You're the host of the show. I gave you a
I don't know.
softball.
I was so focused on this show with you today. I'm
Oh,
going to
that's a
guess
good
Ollie's going to
save.
be there. Ollie's
Yeah,
going to
That's
be
a good
there.
save. Ollie's going to be there. Laura
Dan, are you going to be
Armstrong.
there?
Okay,
I don't know.
Adam's
We'll
got
find out. I'm
And
available.
we'll give you a call if needed. Gareth, Ollie, Laura, and Arcadia Markutsu tomorrow. TFC Montreal tonight, 8 Eastern. Enjoy the match. Thank you all for watching. Thanks to Armin. Thanks to David. And before we go, of course, make sure you subscribe to One Soccer on YouTube. If you haven't already, like this video. If you liked it, share it with a friend. Spread the love. Hopefully we have a bit more of a sane football match tonight. Either way, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you
I
soon.
hope not.